Hello, everyone. Well, this is very exciting. Before we listen to Paul Begley and about Isaac Newton, check out what I found. Now, there's a difference between the Roman Empire, which ended in about 427, and Isaac Newton said that 1260 years after the formation of the Roman Empire or Holy Roman Empire would be the end of the world. The Holy Roman Empire would be the Vatican Church, wouldn't it? And Muslims and the Muslim worship of Isis and the Catholic worshiping, if you will, of the Virgin Mary. So that's what they have in common. And I discovered that 1260 years before 1948, in 688 was the very beginning of the construction of the Dome of the Rock. I'll leave these links in the description box, but in this article, it says very specifically that in 688 the Dome of the Rock construction began, and in another article, it confirms that it began between 685 and 690 something. The 2060 days, believe it or not, in Strong's 2060 is Vashti, the queen that did not obey the king to come see him at the party, leaving room for Esther to approach the king, if you will. So Vashti could be the stubborn, arrogant, Muslim queen, if you will. Also, what happened in 688 is that Cunupert Perctarit became king after his father reigned 17 years and was murdered. And the name Cunupert Perctarit, spelled in Hebrew, actually means conference of pastors. So isn't that something regarding 1260 years to go from 688, ending up in 1948 when Israel became a nation. Cunupert Perctarit, conferent pastoral conference, pastoral conference, pastors conference. Oh, see Isaiah 46:10 and 11. Regarding the numbers 1260, 126, in Hebrew is a word that adds to, Sus. Samak, Vav, Samak is horse. And 60 plus 6 plus 60 is 126. So it's easy to look at 1260 regarding a Hebrew word for horse and 126 and think of a horse as a pastor, and a horse is God's chosen servant. So in this article, paging down a ways, between AD 688 and AD 691, the Dome of the Rock mosque was constructed by Al-Walid ibn Abd al-Malik. So you might speculate that as God sees it, that was the very beginning of the formation of the Holy Roman Empire in 688. And another article confirms that not so specifically, the Dome of the Rock was built between 685 and 691. So not only was Isaac Newton right on the money regarding 1260, it's also erroneous that the world would end in 2060 as Israel became a nation in 1948, because the 70 years would have to be accomplished from 1948, landing somewhere between 2018 and 2028. If a generation is 70 to 80 years, if you make that argument. So 2060 has more to do with 26 equaling Yahweh. Yud He Vav He, that adds to 26, 10 plus 5 plus 6 plus 5. And 2060 being Vashti also is rather confirming that it's the Holy Roman Empire formation, but not exactly the year 2060. So Paul goes on to refer to David Meade, and the 1260 would have something to do with 4/23, 2018, and actually that's very close to 5/13, 2018, which I believe is the beginning of the last 1260 days, or 1335 days, I forgot which, wherein the 7 years is actually 1260 plus 1260 plus 75 days per Daniel 12, 11, and 12, adding to 2595 days, beginning theoretically on 11/29, 2014, ending on the Epiphany in 2022. So that would be the so-called 7 years of tribulation, where the judgment has to be written in order to change the age or end the world, because it's another John 1:1 moment in time. A word can't come forth during great tribulation, but rather during a time and day of Jacob's trouble, which you'll see in Jeremiah 36 and 7. Link that with Revelation 3:10, and also link it with Isaiah 29:22 through 24. So both David Meade and Isaac Newton were actually very close, even right on the money. So God bless everyone. Let's listen to Paul.
We are in the last days. Let me read for you an article that came out 2 days ago out of Scotland, the Scottish Sun. It says, "The end of the world. When do conspiracy theorists believe the apocalypse will happen?" Well, for as long as mankind has walked the earth, the human race has been predicting when and how the world will end. Let's take a closer look at the different end of days theories, both biblical and otherwise. When do doomsday believers think the apocalypse will happen? David Meade, I interviewed him 4 years ago when he wrote that book about Planet X and all that. David Meade, a Christian numerologist, continues to believe that the world is facing a period of the apocalypse that is due to conclude, he says, in the year 2024. David Meade. He first predicted that Planet X, or Nibiru, was hurtling towards the earth and would wipe out humanity on September 23rd, 2017. But after his ridiculous prediction, based on hidden numeral codes supposedly hidden within the Bible, it failed to happen. David Meade has changed his claims. Meade later told The Sun online that people have misunderstood his prophecy and that doomsday will take place over a period of 7 years. Now, Zechariah Stitchin, the controversial, he wrote a book in 1976 called The 12th Planet, claims that Nibiru is inhabited by an alien race called the Anunnaki, who are referred to in the Bible as the Nephilim. Conspiracy theorists have claimed that Elon Musk's SpaceX rocket that is due to take to orbit in 2022 will help destroy Nibiru, although NASA has denied the existence of the secretive planet. One of David Meade's most recent claims suggests that on April 23rd, 2018, that the sun, the moon, and Jupiter would align in a constellation of Virgo, sparking the beginning of a biblical rapture. He believed that on this night, which of course we know it didn't happen, this mysterious death planet, Nibiru, would appear in the sky, triggering the onset of World War III and the rise of the Antichrist and 7 years of tribulation. Of course, we know that did not happen. Now, unsurprisingly, none of his predictions are correct. But despite this, what about the godfather of modern physics, Professor Sir Isaac Newton? What? Sir Isaac Newton? Yes, he might have been the godfather of modern physics, including discovering the law of gravity. Isaac Newton was also a very religious man. As a result, his predictions that humanity would be wiped out by the year 2060. Now, how did he base this number of this prophecy? It was solely based on his deeply held faith in Christianity. He based his theory on the Bible's book of Daniel and calculated the date of the apocalypse as being exactly 1,260 years after the formation of the Holy Roman Empire. That means the world would come to an end in the year, or Christ would return, he said, in the year 2060. A recently published letter by Isaac Newton, which was auctioned off in 1939 after sitting unseen in a trunk for 250 years, went on display at Israel's National Library. Isaac Newton's prediction on the document claims the world will end after the Jews would be returned to the Holy Land and set up a nation, something which happened in 1948 following the creation of Israel. So Sir Isaac Newton prophesied that Israel would return to be a nation, which it's not hard to prophesy that when you read the Bible, where it says that's going to happen, that God would return the Jews to the Holy Land. And it did happen in 1948. So Sir Isaac Newton predicted that or prophesied that 200 years ago. He said after that happens, he said the world is going to come to an end, but not until the year 2060, based on his 1,260 days and turning that 1,260 days in the book of Revelation and the book of Daniel and making the days end up being years. It would add up to the year 2060. Now, Sir Isaac Newton's, he was pretty good on the law of gravity. So let's see. Now, also, the end of the world is being based on CERN. This is what Mike from the World keeps talking about. CERN. This large hadron collider